Okay, everybody, we are meeting Monty today. Monty is a ball python. Now, ball pythons are one of the more common reptiles in the pet industry. They're very popular as pets. And these particular animals do originally come from Africa. But the vast majority of ball pythons that you're going to be finding in captivity, they are going to be captive bred specimens. Now, I'm not certain of the exact number of how many are captive bred versus how many are wild caught. There are still animals that are being introduced, or not introduced, but brought in from Africa from being caught in the wild. But there are many breeders here in the United States that breed these in captivity to sell as pets. If you go to any reptile show, the vast majority of the reptile breeders are going to be breeding ball pythons. Now, this particular color that we're seeing here, this is pretty much kind of your standard color for a wild snake. This is what, if you went out in the wild in Africa, in Sub-Saharan Africa, this is kind of what they would look like. The color morph varieties of this snake are pretty astounding. There is a lot of them. I really don't know all the names. I know some of the more common ones like bumblebee or pastel or cinnamon or there's, of course, albino and whatnot. But there are a huge number of color varieties that are very popular. So if you are interested in a first snake as a pet, this one's probably one of the better ones out there. They do not get to a large size like a lot of python species. Ball pythons usually max out at between 3 to 5 feet, closer to 3 feet for the males, closer to 5 feet for females. The female snakes are longer and heavier. Monty is around. I'm not certain of his actual age. He's pretty much full size, so he's at least 5 years old. Most snakes are gonna do the vast majority of their growing between the first 3 to 5 years of their life. So he doesn't really grow anymore. So he's pretty much reached that size limit. Now, caring for these guys is pretty simple. They need a water source to soak in. They need a heat source. And they like having stuff to hide on. At the moment, just this temporary hide is just this little log that he likes to sit and curl up under. His water source is a bucket, or not a bucket, but a plastic tub filled with filtered water. And then his heat source is this lamp. Now, this is not always on. It actually comes on during the nighttime, and that's because the enclosure below him, the heat lamp in here, which is pretty warm, actually heats from below. So his tank actually gets an adequate amount of warmth even when his heat lamp is off. Now, this is a low wattage heat lamp. This is just a 25 watt moonlight bulb. So it's essentially, it just replicates like moonlight and then just provides a minimal amount of heat. It does not get very hot. So it's just very important to make sure that they don't get too hot. Even though they are a tropical snake, you don't want it to be 100 degrees in there or something like that. That would not be good for them. Now, snakes can either be, if you're feeding them, and we will be feeding this guy later today. I'll be showing that in a separate video, because when we do feed our snakes, we put them in a separate container to feed them. We don't feed them in their enclosure, so they don't become habituated to striking at something entering their enclosure. They can either be fed frozen thawed or live. Now, Monty has been a bit difficult. He is a snake that we have been trying to get to eat frozen thawed for a while. He was accustomed to live feeding by his previous owner, which live feeding is not the end of the world. If they do it, it is more difficult because you can't just throw a rat in your snake's house and just walk away and leave it. Surprise, mice and rats do not like to be eaten alive. And in the wild, snakes are ambush predators. They kind of lie in wait, they hide, or they hunt at nighttime to find their prey. At least this particular species does. Some snakes are diurnal; they're active during the day, and so these guys are ambush predators. So when they're going for food, they don't want that animal that they're trying to eat to know they're there. Now, when you have an artificial environment like this, an enclosure, if you throw a rat in here, that rat's going to figure out really quick what's going on, and the snake may not even want to eat it at first. It might leave it alone, which can cause the problem of the rat might just run around there and pee and poop everywhere, which is not good for the snake. The rat may also attack the snake. There are instances of owners feeding their snakes, or going to feed them, throwing a rodent in there, and then the snake, they come back and find that the snake has had its head chewed off or it's been attacked, and it'll have the bite marks from the rat along its body or whatever. So it's, if you're going to feed him live, you kind of have to hold that rat there on the pair of an end of tongs and wait for them to do it. And the problem with Monty here is he'll eat live, but he's very finicky. So when we get a rat for him, unfortunately, in the past, you may have to hold on to that rat for several days and hang it over him until he decides to finally try and eat it. And so the rat, when you're holding a rat by its tail, it's going to make a lot of noise. It's going to scream. So it is not exactly some people may not like that. If you're squeamish and you definitely don't want to, have to deal with that, getting a snake that is already accustomed to eating frozen thawed is a lot better. Also, you don't have to keep live rodents at your house or go to the store and buy one all the time. You can just keep a bunch of frozen ones in your freezer, just like you would with chicken or pork or beef, or if you're vegan, you want a snake, your tofu, whatever. So it's just important to remember that you might think it's weird to keep rodents in your freezer. Well, you know what? It's a lot easier. You can just pull them out and just defrost them. Put them in the fridge, defrost them, which is what I've done with this guy. We're going to try to get him to eat a frozen thawed today. Since it's quarantine time, we're not really leaving the house a whole lot. I really want to try to get him to eat frozen thawed versus live. Unfortunately, one of the things you kind of have to do is you do need to starve the animal a little bit. Now, when I say starve, I don't mean that he's going to die. He's on the verge of, I'm not going to be able to eat. Snakes can go a long time without eating. He's accustomed to eating at least once every week and a half to 2 weeks. That's about how much he eats. And he just eats one either small rat or a very large mouse. That's pretty much what he's used to eating. We have gone a little bit longer than that. It's been about 3 weeks now, and so we're hoping that will make him a little hungry, and so he will go after this frozen thawed animal and become more accustomed to doing it. If you are thinking to yourself that sounds inhumane or terrible, again, this is to get the animal to eat a form of prey that is more humane for the animals that he's eating. I don't have to sit here and hold a rat on a pair of tongs for 5 to 10 minutes and wait for him to make up his mind. Or not in here, but in the feed tank that we feed them in. So it makes it easier for us, and it makes it easier for them, because it is a lot safer for them to eat frozen thawed versus live prey. And you can see he's curling up under the log. That's what he likes to do. Now, ball pythons do get their name because of their tendency to ball up, especially when you hold them. They love to just kind of ball up. They do that in the wild as a defense. They'll kind of wrap their body around their head to protect themselves from predators. Let's see if he's balled himself up there. Not really. He's got his head visible at the moment. You can see him right down. Now, if you get a good close-up look of his face, you can see what looks like little pink pits right under my finger right there. You can see them along his upper lip, essentially. Those are actually what's called labial pits, and those actually sense body heat. So on top of being able to see very well at nighttime, and of course they stick their tongue in and out to smell, and then they can hear through their lower jaw, those labial pits let them see the heat of other animals. So they like to hunt at nighttime. We generally feed our snakes in the evening. That's when they're more acclimated to wanting to eat their food. So I'll be posting a separate video of feeding him. Hopefully he goes for it. I'm really hoping that this guy will start to eat frozen thawed. He's shown some promise in the past where he strikes at it and then wraps around it, and then you come back later and he just kind of left it there and he's like, it's not alive. I really don't want to eat it, So hopefully this time, he shows a little more promise. Otherwise, I will have to go get a live rat, which I'm not wanting to do, but if he doesn't want to eat frozen thawed, we'll have to just make do. So anyways, we'll be having another video later where we show Bullwinkle going to eat, or not Bullwinkle, that's our other ball python, Monty Python, for those fans of the British show out there. And hopefully he'll do it, but get to see him in another video a little bit later on. And again, this was John with the Creature Teacher. Feel free to like, subscribe, share the videos, and as always, check out our Facebook, our Instagram, Twitter page, websites. We'll be seeing you guys later. Okay, bye.